Hello all. Today we'll be discussing about chemotherapy of tuberculosis and leprosy. Myself, Dr. Sudhir Prudvi from Department of Pharmacology, Kaktiya Medical College. So, tuberculosis. So, what is tuberculosis and how it is caused, how it is transmitted, what are the organs it is going to affect, and what is the treatment for tuberculosis? All these things we'll be discussing now. So, first things first, tuberculosis is caused by Mycobacterium tuberculosis. So how we get the infection, how it is transmitted from one person to other person? Infection is due to inhalation of infected droplets. So what is the first organ to affect in tuberculosis? That is lungs. So now after uh, infecting lungs, so where does this mycobacterium tuberculosis reside in our body? So this is important. That is inside the macrophages. So in generally, we use like one drug for every disease or any kind of situation. Example, for typhoid or cholera, we generally use ciprofloxacin or like cephalosporins like that. Or if you have any pain, we use painkiller. But here in tuberculosis, we use multiple drugs. Like minimum, we start with three drugs, and we use like some daily we use 8 or 9 drugs even. So why we use multiple drugs in tuberculosis? What is the reason for using multiple drugs in tuberculosis? The only reason is to overcome the resistance. So what are the symptoms of tuberculosis? Evening rise of fever. This is a classical symptom of tuberculosis. This fever, it is not like high grade fever like 102, 103. It is not like high grade. It is just some 99 to 100 degrees. That is evening rise of fever. And another classical feature of tuberculosis is weight loss. So these two are the classical features: evening rise of fever and weight loss. And the other features are night sweats, fatigue, and the one more classical feature of advanced tuberculosis: blood streaked sputum. So now coming to anti-tuberculosis drugs. So classification of anti-tuberculosis drugs. There are like two kinds of drugs, two types of classifications: first line and second line. So again, in first line there are oral drugs and injectable drugs. In second line there are oral drugs and injectable drugs. So first line oral drugs. There are four oral drugs and one injectable drug in the first line. So let's see the first line drugs: rifampicin, isoniazid, pyrazinamide, ethambutol. These four are the first line oral drugs. What are the first line injectable drugs? Streptomycin. So these comes under injectable in the sense we will give through IM or IV. Preferably we give IM. So these are the first line drugs. So rifampicin, isoniazid, pyrazinamide, ethambutol, and streptomycin. And coming to second line drugs, so I told you second line drugs also, these again subdivided into oral drugs and injectable drugs. So what are the second line oral drugs? Fluoroquinolones, para-aminosalicylic acid, ethionamide, thiacetazone, terizidone, cycloserine, rifabutin. And second line injectable drugs: kanamycin, amikacin, capreomycin. So here you just remember these names. You need not to go in detail into these second line drugs. You just remember these names, right? So in classification of anti-tuberculosis, we have first line drugs, second line drugs. Again in first line drugs, we have oral injectable. Again in second line drugs, we have oral injectable. This is must for you people to learn these classifications and these names. At least in second line drugs, at least to remember oral drugs, at least 4 or 5. It's not like you need not remember everything. At least to remember 4 or 5. So let's discuss about these first line drugs in detail. So coming to first drug, isoniazid. So what are the points we discuss about this isoniazid? So main thing is like mechanism of action. So how isoniazid is acting against this mycobacterium tuberculosis and how it is stopping its growth, or whether it is killing that microorganism, or whether it is stopping that growth of that microorganism. Like that we are going to see them now. So isoniazid, it is structurally similar to pyridoxine. What is pyridoxine? This is vitamin B6. So isoniazid is structurally similar to vitamin B6, that is pyridoxine. So what is the mechanism of action of isoniazid? It inhibits the mycolic acid synthesis. What is this mycolic acid? Mycolic acid is one of the main components of bacterial cell wall. So if there is no mycolic acid, no bacterial cell wall, obviously organism will die. So isoniazid is whether it is bactericidal or bacteriostatic. This is bactericidal. Cidal means it is going to kill that microorganism, and bacteriostatic means it stop the growth of the microorganism. So isoniazid is bactericidal. So how it is inhibiting the growth of the microorganism, whether it is inhibiting intracellular microorganisms and as well as extracellular microorganisms. So bacteria inhibited comes under both intracellular and as well as extracellular category in for this isoniazid. So these are the things for isoniazid. So what is the mechanism of action? Whether it is bactericidal or bacteriostatic, we know it is bactericidal, and what bacteria it is inhibiting, both intracellular and as well as extracellular. So what are the adverse drug reactions? And these are very important for you people to know about these adverse drug reactions. So peripheral neuritis, it is a peripheral neuritis, and liver toxicity or hepatotoxicity are the main side effects for this isoniazid. Peripheral neuritis means for legs and hands, for palm and foot, we'll have this numbness and as well as this tingling sensation. That is nothing but peripheral neuritis, damaging the peripheral nerves, and liver toxicity. And then another classical side effect for isoniazid is dry mouth. So that's why we ask the patient to take more and more water during the treatment of tuberculosis, because they cause dry mouth. If there is dry mouth, obviously it leads to infections. And then another adverse drug reaction is some allergic reactions in susceptible individuals. So here classical adverse drug reactions for isoniazid is peripheral neuritis, liver toxicity, and dry mouth. That is nothing but xerostomia. So when this drug should be discontinued, this isoniazid, we should stop this drug. Under following condition, we should not use this drug, and we will go for another alternative drug. So what are those conditions where we should stop this isoniazid? There are three situations where we should stop using isoniazid. Those are: number one, abdominal pain; number two, nausea and vomiting heavily; and loss of appetite. When we get this abdomen pain, nausea, vomiting, and loss of appetite in susceptible individuals, we should stop this isoniazid. So this is the thing with isoniazid. So mechanism of action, whether it is bactericidal or bacteriostatic, and what are bacteria it is inhibiting, whether it is extracellular, intracellular, or both. And these are the adverse drug reactions. In adverse drug reactions, I already told two classical adverse drug reactions are peripheral neuritis and liver toxicity. Right. Next one is rifampicin. So what is the mechanism of action of rifampicin? Rifampicin, it binds to one enzyme, that is DNA-dependent RNA polymerase. After binding to DNA-dependent RNA polymerase, it inhibits the DNA-dependent RNA polymerase. So obviously there is no formation of RNA, no continuation of growth. Uh, so whether it is bactericidal or bacteriostatic, so no formation of RNA, no growth, it will die. So definitely it is under bactericidal. So what bacteria it is inhibiting, whether it is inhibiting intracellular bacteria or extracellular bacteria, it is inhibiting both. So mechanism of action, binding to DNA dependent RNA polymerase and inhibiting it. So obviously it is going to kill the microorganism. And bactericidal, so what bacteria it is going to inhibit means both intracellular and as well as extracellular bacteria. So what are the indications for the using of rifampicin? So we know rifampicin is used for tuberculosis. Apart from tuberculosis, we use this rifampicin in other diseases also. So what are those other diseases? This is important for you people. Just remember the names, and you need not to know the doses and how we are going to use. Just remember the names. So what are the indications for rifampicin? Tuberculosis, leprosy, meningitis prophylaxis caused by Neisseria meningitidis that you might have learned in your microbiology sessions. So, and then brucellosis. So these are the four indications for usage of rifampicin. Number one, tuberculosis, leprosy, meningitis prophylaxis, and brucellosis. And coming to ADRs. So what are the adverse drug reactions for rifampicin? Number one, red orange color urine. So for those patients who are taking this rifampicin in the starting phase, like intensive phase, or maybe in the starting to mid of continuation phase, their urine color will change to red orange. So we have to tell the patients to not to panic about that urine color, and it is fine, completely normal because of that dye. So next adverse drug reaction is flu-like syndrome. If we like, we should ask the patient to take the rifampicin on daily basis, like every day, 7 days in a week and 28 days in a month. He should take the rifampicin. Suppose if he used the rifampicin today and he discontinued for the next 3 days, and again on fifth day again he took the rifampicin, again he discontinues for 1 or 2 days. Like if we take the rifampicin on intermittent basis, like not in a continual in the way we prescribe, if we take that drug in intermittently, definitely he is going to get that flu-like syndrome. Flu-like syndrome is nothing but all the symptoms of influenza virus, like cold, throat infection, like a mild fever, sputum, green yellow color sputum, all those things. That is nothing but flu-like syndrome, which is classical feature of rifampicin. And then other one is liver toxicity. So how to remember these adverse drug reactions for this rifampicin? So just look at the name, rifampicin, R-I-F-A-M, right? So R is nothing but red color urine and eye. Intermittent usage leads to flu-like syndrome. That is what the thing, right? Red color urine, eye. Intermittent usage leads to flu-like syndrome. This is how you can remember these adverse drug reactions for rifampicin, right? So after rifampicin, pyrazinamide. So what is the mechanism of action of pyrazinamide? So it inhibits the cell membrane synthesis. So whether it is bactericidal or bacteriostatic, means it is bactericidal. So what is bactericidal? It kills the microorganism. Bacteriostatic means it stops the growth of the microorganism. So what bacteria it is going to inhibit? It inhibits only intracellular bacteria. So for the first two drugs, rifampicin and isoniazid, it inhibits both intracellular as well as extracellular. But here pyrazinamide inhibits only intracellular bacteria. So what are the adverse drug reactions? As usual, liver toxicity is a classical feature for pyrazinamide also. And then the another classical feature is it precipitates the gout by decreasing the elimination of uric acid. And regarding all these gout and everything, we'll be discussing in our subsequent sessions. So as of now, you just remember it precipitates the gout. So how it is going to precipitate the gout means, generally we used to get gout-like symptoms just because by if there is like more uric acid levels in the blood. So for gout treatment, we give treatment in such a way to decrease the uric acid or to increase the elimination of uric acid. So here, this pyrazinamide, it decreases the elimination of uric acid. So obviously, body levels uric acid rises and it leads to gout symptoms. So here we completed pyrazinamide, and then next coming to another first line drug, ethambutol. So what is the mechanism of action of ethambutol? It inhibits the arabinosyl transferase enzyme, which is required for cell membrane synthesis. So obviously, if we inhibit that enzyme, no cell membrane synthesis, and obviously it affects the growth of the microorganism. So whether it is bactericidal or bacteriostatic, means it is bacteriostatic. The first three drugs, isoniazid, rifampicin, pyrazinamide, these three are bactericidal and it is bacteriostatic. Bacteriostatic means it stops the growth of the microorganism. So what bacteria it is going to inhibit? It inhibits both intracellular as well as extracellular bacteria. And here the classical adverse effect for ethambutol. If you use this ethambutol for a long run, definitely you are going to get this some visual disturbances. Uh, by why we get visual disturbances means because of retrobulbar neuritis. So that's why those patients who are taking this ethambutol, definitely they should undergo frequent eye testing. So how to remember this ethambutol eye testing? See, just see the first two letters of ethambutol, ET. That is nothing but E for eye, T for testing. So you should undergo frequent eye testing for every 3 months or 2 months, specifically old age people. Uh, so they should undergo this eye testing just because they may prone to retrobulbar neuritis, which will affect their vision. So ET, eye testing, frequent eye testing is required for ethambutol. And then as usual, it decreases the elimination of uric acid and it precipitates the gout. So this is the thing with ethambutol. So next one, streptomycin. We generally don't use streptomycin in general because of classical adverse effects like nephrotoxicity and ototoxicity. And these are the classical adverse effects for aminoglycosides: nephrotoxicity and ototoxicity. Nephrotoxicity means it affects the kidney. Ototoxicity means it affects the ear. Ear means inner ear. It affects the inner ear. It affects kidney. So for because of these very toxic adverse effects, we don't use this streptomycin. So what is this streptomycin? Whether it is bactericidal or bacteriostatic means it is bactericidal. And then what are the bacteria it is inhibiting? It inhibits the extracellular bacteria. So right. So here we completed first generation anti-tubercular drugs. So here this is a small assignment for you. So if you uh, just complete these blanks which I mentioned here in a tabular column. These drugs. H is nothing but isoniazid. R is nothing but rifampicin. Z, pyrazinamide, ethambutol, and streptomycin. So these drugs. So here, what is the mechanism of action? If you just write this mechanism of action for all those things and what bacteria it is inhibiting, whether it is intracellular bacteria or extracellular bacteria. If you want, like if you don't have that clarity, you just rewind this video and you just see once again. So if you write what bacteria it is inhibiting, intracellular, extracellular, or maybe both, whether it is hepatotoxic or not. If it is hepatotoxic, you just keep tick mark. If it is not hepatotoxic, you just keep into mark. And the next, ADR. Coming to ADRs, what are the classical ADRs for these all drugs? Rifampicin, isoniazid, pyrazinamide, ethambutol, and streptomycin. If you can fill this box and if you can just make all these things in one paper, and it is very easy for you people before going to exam, just like with one look, you can just get all the things like mechanism of action, adverse effects, and what bacteria it is inhibiting, whether it is bactericidal or bacteriostatic, everything you will just get a small glimpse. So just make sure to do all these things. So here we completed these first generation anti-tubercular drugs, and coming to second generation anti-tubercular, here we just know the names. We need not to go in detail into these drugs. So in second line anti-tubercular drugs, we have second line oral drugs and second line injectable drugs. So coming to second line oral drugs, we have fluoroquinolones. In fluoroquinolones, we have levofloxacin, gatifloxacin, all these things. And then para amino salicylic acid, ethionamide, thiacetazone, terizidone, cycloserine, prothionamide. It is nothing but ethionamide, one of derivatives from ethionamide, prothionamide. See, thionamide, prothionamide, right? And then next, rifabutin. Rifabutin is also like similar to rifampicin, but with a few structural changes, with changing its efficacy and as well as potency even. So coming to second line injectable drugs, kanamycin, amikacin, and capreomycin. You just remember these names, second line drugs, but these first line drugs you should know in detail what I told, right? So second line drugs, oral, injectable, fluoroquinolones, para-aminosalicylic acid, ethionamide, thiacetazone, terizidone, cycloserine, prothionamide, rifabutin. And second line injectable, kanamycin, amikacin, and capreomycin, right? So now, these RNTCP guidelines. What is this RNTCP guidelines? RNTCP guidelines are nothing but this protocol which we use for tuberculosis patients. Like what kind of treatment we give, depending on the situation of the patient, on how many months we should give the treatment, what are the drugs we should give in those months, like that. So RNTCP, Revised National Tuberculosis Control Program. So uh, this treat name is nothing but DOTS. Directly observed treatment, short course chemotherapy. So what is the full form of DOTS means? DOTS, directly observe treatment, short course chemotherapy, right? So here in general, here we have two categories of patients. Number one, category 1 and category 2. Who comes under category 1? Category 1 patients are all those new patients, like who got uh, diagnosed with mycobacterium tuberculosis recently. And then category 2 patients are old patients. What do you mean by old patients? Old patient means those who got diagnosed with tuberculosis past in their life, they started these medicines, but we generally prescribe medicines for 6 months, 8 months, like that. But they use those medicines for 4 months or 2 months or 1 month, and because of those ADRs or because of any other reason, they stopped using those medicines. So again, after like 1 year like that, again those symptoms will relapse to them, and again then they will come back. Again they should start those medicines. So these are the patients, like it come under category 2, old patients who got diagnosed with mycobacterium tuberculosis in the past, who started those medicines but stopped because of many reasons, right? So category 1 and category 2. Category 1, new patients. Category 2, old patients. So here, in dots we have two phases: intensive phase and continuation phase. So here the number which I wrote before, this number is how many months you are using those treatment. And then drugs which I wrote, the thing which I wrote in bracket is drugs. Suppose if I wrote HR, 2 for 2 months we have to use H, that is nothing but isoniazid, and R, rifampicin. So that is the meaning for these numbers, right? So category 1 patients, that is new patients, intensify we use HRZT. H means isoniazid, R rifampicin, Z pyrazinamide, E ethambutol for a 2 months. For a 2 months period we use these four drugs. And then next in the continuation phase, for it is for 4 months. So in intensive phase is for 2 months and continuation phase is for 4 months. The total duration is 6 months. So in the continuation phase, what are the drugs we use? We use HRE. We remove this pyrazinamide, right? And then next, second category, old patients. Here, intensive phase is for 3 months and continue phase is for 5 months. The total duration is 8 months. So in intensive phase, what are the drugs we use for 2 months? Means all first line drugs. We use HRZES. We use isoniazid, rifampicin, pyrazinamide, ethambutol, and injectable streptomycin IM, right? And then for the next 1 month, we remove that streptomycin. We just use HRZE, H isoniazid, or rifampicin, Z pyrazinamide, E ethambutol. So here we finish this intensive phase, and after 3 months we go for continuation phase for 5 months. In those 5 months we just use HRE. H means isoniazid, or rifampicin, E ethambutol. So that is what the thing with category 1 patients and category 2 patients. So category 1 new patients, category 2 old patients. We have intensive phase, continuation phase. So in category 1 the total duration of treatment is 6 months, and category 2 the total duration of treatment is 8 months. So is that fine? uh, so next, um, so in same RNTCP guidelines for multi-drug resistant. So now first we spoke about just new case and as well as old case, but here now we are talking about multi-drug resistance. What is this multi-drug resistance? Multi-drug resistance means that Mycobacterium tuberculosis, it is resistance to isoniazid and rifampicin. If it is resistance to isoniazid and rifampicin, then we call that group of patients as multi-drug resistant patients. And for them, definitely the treatment protocol will be completely different from what we discussed before. Here we will combine few another second generation drugs, anti-tubercular drugs for effectiveness. So what is MDR? Multi-drug resistance. So what do you mean by multi-drug resistance? Means that Mycobacterium tuberculosis which is resistant to H isoniazid and or rifampicin. So those group of patients we call it as multi-drug resistant patients. So here we have same category multi-drug resistant tuberculosis, and if that is resistance to only rifampicin, so what is the drug treatment protocol? In the same way we have intensive phase and continuation phase. In MDR TB, here in intensive phase the treatment is 6 to 9 months, and continuation phase the treatment is 18 months, right? So what are the drugs we use in intensive phase for MDR TB? So first generation ZD, Z means pyrazinamide, E means ethambutol, and second generation kanamycin, levofloxacin, ethionamide, cycloserine. You just remember these names. You need not to go in detail into kanamycin, levofloxacin, all that, because these drugs we will be discussing in anti bacterial. Just as of now, you just remember these names. So for 6 to 9 months, we use ZD, kanamycin, levofloxacin, ethionamide, and cycloserine. So next, after finishing that 6 to 9 months, next we'll go for continuation phase. That is for 18 months. In 18 months, we just use ethionamide from the first generation, and then next we start with levofloxacin, ethionamide, and cycloserine. So we just stop this Z and kanamycin in the continuation phase. So here we removed this Z, and here we removed this kanamycin. So after removing them, we got this continuation phase protocol. That is ethionamide, levofloxacin, cycloserine. So next, if it is resistance to only rifampicin, so what is the treatment protocol? Same for the 6 to 9 months we use intensive phase, and for the 18 months we use continuation phase. In the 6 to 9 months, what you use means HZE, H isoniazid, Z pyrazinamide, E ethambutol, same kanamycin, levofloxacin, ethionamide, and cycloserine. See, all these four drugs are present here also. Kanamycin, levofloxacin, ethionamide, and cycloserine. The same thing, but here we just added that isoniazid. After finishing this intensive phase, next continuation phase. In continuation phase, it is for 18 months. So here we use HE. H means isoniazid, E means ethambutol. Next, levofloxacin, ethionamide, and cycloserine. The same thing for MDR-TB. See here also we use levofloxacin, ethionamide, cycloserine, cycloserine. So this is the treatment protocol for MDR-TB. So what I told, what do you mean by MDR? So the Mycobacterium tuberculosis, which is resistant to either isoniazid or rifampicin or both. So that is nothing but MDR. So category MDR tuberculosis intensive phase, continuation phase. In rifampicin alone, same intensive phase and continuation phase. Here you just see the total duration of treatment for Mycobacterium tuberculosis. Here 18 months. Here 6 to 9 months means some 24 to 27 months, almost like 2 years. Minimum use for 2 years to 2.5 years. Here also the same, 24 months to 27 months. This is the treatment duration for multi-drug resistance, right? So this is the RNTCP guidelines for multi-drug resistance. And next, RNTCP guidelines for extensive drug resistance. So what is this extensive drug resistance? So extensive drug resistance means this Mycobacterium tuberculosis, which is resistance to fluoroquinolones, which is the second generation anti-tubercular drug, or which is resistance to second generation injectable drugs. So whether it is resistance to fluoroquinolones or whether it is resistance to injectable drugs. What are the drugs which I told in injectable drugs? If we can just go through: kanamycin, amikacin, and capreomycin. So these are the second generation injectable drugs. If it is resistant to fluoroquinolones or second generation injectable drugs, we call that category as extensive drug resistance. So what is the drug treatment protocol for extensive drug resistance in RNTCP guidelines? Here we have seen intensive phase and continuation phase. Here intensive phase is for 6 to 12 months and continuation is for 18 months. So what will be the duration? Total duration means 18 plus 6, 24. 18 plus 12, 40. Sorry, 30. So for almost 2 years to 2.5 years, we use this treatment protocol for extensive drug resistance. If you use for 2 year, minimum 2 years to maximum 2.5 year, even after 2.5 year, if we still find those mycobacterium tuberculosis in the sputum of those patients, then still we have to continue that one for next 6 months. So minimum duration is 2 years and maximum duration is up to 3 years. We have to use these all these drugs. See how many drugs we have here. So what are the drugs we use for extensive drug resistance for 6 to 12 months? Capreomycin, moxifloxacin, para-aminosalicylic acid, and high dose of isoniazid. High dose of isoniazid, clofazimine, linezolid. It is a high-end antibacterial drug. Linezolid. We use this linezolid for high-end infections. And amoxiclav. And these are the group of drugs we use for extensive drug resistance in intensive phase. And coming to continuation phase for 18 months, what are the drugs we use? Moxifloxacin, para-aminosalicylic acid, high dose of isoniazid, clofazimine, linezolid, amoxiclav. Here we did in the continuation phase, we stopped this capreomycin. So here we have capreomycin, but here we don't have capreomycin. So we stopped the capreomycin and we continued our continuation phase. So this is a treatment guideline for extensive drug resistant tuberculosis. So intensive phase, continuation phase, 6 to 12 months, 18 months, and these are the drugs. We just as of now, we just remember these drug names, right? So here till now we finished this tuberculosis. Like we started with the drug classification. After classification, we went through all the first line drugs and second line drugs, and then next we came to RNTCP guidelines dots for general category 1 patients and category 2 patients, and RNTCP guidelines for multi-drug resistance and RNTCP guidelines for extensive drug resistance. So next we'll talk about this leprosy. So leprosy is caused by Mycobacterium leprae. So how this infection is spreading from one person to another person? It, so for tuberculosis, I told it is spreading through infection through droplets, right? For TB, it is spreading through droplets. But for leprosy, from one person to another person, the bacilli are shed from nose and skin lesions of infected patients. So from nose and skin lesions, these are shedded and they infect the other person. This is how the infection is spreading in Mycobacterium leprae. So next, after this thing, so clinical classification and treatment here, this leprosy it is divided into two categories. Number one, paucibacillary leprosy and multibacillary leprosy. What is this paucibacillary leprosy and what is this multibacillary leprosy? Depending on the number of skin lesions. If the skin lesions are 1 to 5, it is paucibacillary. If it is greater than or equal to 6, it is multibacillary. So it is, as of now, just remember this bacteriological index. Bacteriological index is less than 2 for paucibacillary, and bacteriological index is greater than or equal to 2 in multibacillary. And then you don't need all these things, which I will be discussing in my next slide. So just remember paucibacillary, multibacillary. So number of skin lesions and bacteriological index, right? The 1 to 5 skin lesions in paucibacillary and greater than 6 in multibacillary. And bacteriological index, it is less than 2 for paucibacillary, and then greater than 2 for multibacillary. So coming to this anti-leprosy drugs. So what are the anti-leprosy drugs? Dapsone, clofazimine, rifampicin, and antibiotics like fluoroquinolones and clarithromycin. And sorry for the spelling mistakes. Antibiotics, fluoroquinolones, and clarithromycin. So these are the anti-leprosy drugs: Dapsone, clofazimine, rifampicin, and antibiotics like fluoroquinolones and clarithromycin. So in next, it is a WHO regimen for the leprosy treatment. So what is this? First, we discussed about that RNTCP guidelines for tuberculosis, and at the same time, we have this leprosy treatment also. So WHO regimen for leprosy treatment for multibacillary leprosy and paucibacillary leprosy. The multibacillary leprosy is also known as lepromatous leprosy. So here we use a dapsone. Dapsone 100 milligrams. We use it daily. So next, after dapsone, we use clofazimine. Along with dapsone, we use clofazimine 50 milligram daily for 29 days, followed by 300 milligram on 30th day. Next, rifampicin 600 milligram once in a month for 2 years. That is, once in a month for 2 years means total he will be taking 24 tablets of rifampicin. So this is a treatment protocol for multibacillary or lepromatous leprosy. We use three drugs: dapsone, clofazimine, rifampicin. Dapsone 100 milligrams daily, clofazimine 50 milligrams daily on for 29 days. On 30th day we use 300 milligram, and rifampicin 600 milligram once in a month for 2 years. So this is what for multibacillary or lepromatous leprosy. And then coming to paucibacillary, which is also known as tuberculoid leprosy. So here we use the same drug dapsone 100 milligrams daily, the same thing, dapsone 100 milligrams daily. Next we use rifampicin. Rifampicin 600 milligrams once in a month, same like multibacillary, but here in multibacillary we use it for 2 years, that is 24 months. But in paucibacillary, we can use this one for only 6 months, because paucibacillary is a milder form and multibacillary is a extensive form. There are more lesions and more nerve damage, so that's why we use a rifampicin for a long time. And in paucibacillary, there are less skin lesions and less nerve damage. That is the reason why we use this rifampicin for a short duration of time, that is only for 6 months. And then, if dapsone is not tolerable for that patients because of many reasons, maybe because of adverse drug reactions or maybe because of less tolerability, we use this clofazimine, same 50 milligram daily for 29 days, ఆ తర్వాత 300 milligram on 30th day. So this one we use only if dapsone is not tolerable. So this is the WHO regimen for uh, leprosy, multibacillary or lepromatous, paucibacillary, tuberculoid. We generally use only three drugs: dapsone, clofazimine, rifampicin. So this is what the thing with WHO regimen for leprosy. So here we covered in leprosy. So just it is caused by Mycobacterium leprae, and clinical classification and as well as treatment we covered. And then what are the anti-leprosy drugs we covered, and then next we covered what is the WHO regimen for leprosy treatment. So this is what the thing with anti-tubercular drugs and anti-leprosy drugs. And don't forget that small assignment which I gave in tuberculosis part regarding the first line drugs, first line oral and as well as injectable. So just finish that assignment and keep that paper with you or write in your own notes, so that will be very much helpful during exams. Thank you all.